So, welcome to this Monday afternoon, where I'm going to play around a bit with Angular's new Signal APIs or some of the new Signal APIs. The idea is to get an overview, because tomorrow I have to do a small presentation about this and I kind of want to prepare it. So this will also be like just a working session that I stream, because I was here like working anyway, so thought why not stream this. So let's see. Also let me quickly check something. Let's see. So yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to open here quickly the studio. Okay, I don't see it, but we are live. Good. Okay, cool. So let's go and engineer how do we call it, new APIs, engineer new APIs, maybe like that. Or actually what I want to do is I want to create one component that showcases kind of like all the APIs, like engineer, I don't know, let's still go with new APIs, and let's go add latest, right? CSS, cool. Do you want to use server side? No, for the moment not. npx engineer. I probably cannot engineer new. How do we call it? Signal APIs at latest. What? Path must match. So I cannot do. Seems like I cannot do a minus. Okay, I was not aware of this. What? npx. Oh, sorry. It's like this. Signal APIs, of course. Okay, so we are installing 17.3.2. Hey, your signals video were helpful, input, output, etc. Cool. Very happy to hear that this was helpful. And this, yeah, it's always cool feedback. Like, it's always good feedback, good to hear if some of the stuff that I create also helps, right? Because that's the reason why I do it. Try Annex. Yeah, I could. But to be honest, this is maybe not the most popular opinion out there, but I'm not the biggest fan of Annex at the moment. Somehow I feel like it has its use cases for like big projects, right? But I feel like you handle in a ton of complexity that you may not need, and it may make your project way more complicated. So I think like for most of the use cases where I've seen Annex, it was like overcomplicating a lot of things because people were not using it correctly. People were not really getting how Annex should be used. And then you just add like extra complexity on top where you, for cases where they didn't even use it. So, but maybe there's also like other examples where people are really expert in Annex, and then once you really know it, that it gives you like out of the box so many things, even for small applications. But I think it's especially for bigger applications. How did I call it? Signal APIs, I think. Cool. Signal APIs, and run start, and here we go. No. Okay. Localhost 4200. Cool. I'm talking about monorepos. I feel the same about NX, it just adds too much complexity. Yeah, exactly. For standard teams, I also feel like it's too much on top. Nice setup, man. And you seem okay, yeah. So yeah, I recently reworked the setup because I was not so happy with my office space. Basically, I reworked it. So I had here like a TV, which I bought because I wanted the place where I can also play video games. But then at some point, the room just became like, yeah, there was too much stuff in it, so I completely reworked the office setup, and now I also don't have to use the green screen all the times, which is also was a bit annoying. What do you think of Angular Wiz announcement? I think it's pretty cool. Like, I don't know exactly what it means, but for me it means that Angular and Wiz merged together means Angular will be used more internally, I guess, at Google. That means basically, usually if something is more important for Google, then it will get more resources, it will get more traffic, more momentum, more hype, right? And I think Angular can only benefit from this. Also that they said that they use it inside the YouTube mobile app is pretty cool. So I think that's pretty cool. I think everything where Angular is used more is good for the framework, basically. So, okay, so I have to present tomorrow all the new Signal APIs. So I guess like basically there is new inputs, there are new outputs, there are model inputs, then there is a new way to do view children, there's a new way to do content children, right? Then there are new lifecycle hooks, like two, basically after render and after next render, right? Those are the two new lifecycle hooks. And recently we also got like default content in ng content, so maybe that, and I guess that will be enough for my 20-minute talk. So yeah, let's quickly make a new directory, inputs, new file. Probably I should use schematics, but somehow that component what did you guys think of the Wiz announcement? Like, Tayamba, does it mean something for you? Hey man, I really love your content. Well, thank you for that. That's well, so I'm very happy to hear that. Is there any standard time when you stream? Yeah, that's something I get asked a lot, and there isn't really, because I am streaming like pretty spontaneous. So whenever there's a topic coming out, or whenever I feel like, and when life doesn't get into the way. So basically, I'm pretty spontaneous. But maybe I should do that like. Maybe I should schedule it, but I think, yeah, maybe I should schedule it. I could think about scheduling it and do it like on a regular basis, but it's kind of a commitment I currently don't have. So for the moment, no, there isn't really. So for the moment, I just do freestyle. So in the past, we were writing at input and then basically name a string, right? And now with the new input syntax, what we can do is name is equal to a input, and we can give it the type. So we can say this is a string input. I also changed recently the keyboard, so I'm missing quite a lot of the keystrokes, right? But because I had the Moonlander for quite some time, and the Moonlander was super cool. But now when I rework my office setup, the Moonlander has one disadvantage, and the disadvantage is that it's not Bluetooth. It uses cables, so you have kind of like, well, I can quickly show you this. So this is where the Moonlander comes. So this is basically, when you buy it, you get this nice case for the Moonlander, and then you can already start, like, I absolutely love the keyboard, but I do not like this. So there's a lot of cable involved. So there is one cable which is basically for the connection between the Moonlander and your computer, and then there's another one to connect the two pieces of the Moonlander. And now I have a very clean office space, and if I put that on top, then it all goes away, like the whole cable management that I invested was for nothing then. So therefore I'm trying to switch the keyboard now, and yeah, not the best yet, but we will get there. So basically we have component, and now we could actually display here, right? We could display the name. We could then also use this component, which would make sense. So inputs component, inside app component, go away. App inputs, right? And now we can pass down stuff. So we can say the name is hello world or whatever. And it will be converted into a signal, right? So what I've seen people, I've seen people who thought that here you have to pass in a signal because this is now a signal input. So people were even typing this down here. So in practice, I've seen how people were saying that basically this one was not an input signal, but name or whatever is signal, and that's actually wrong. So you do not need to type this here because the type is inferred, right? So that's the basic thing. Then the next thing is, like, you can have a first name, and you could say that this first name, oh my god, that this first name is required. So what you would do, you would put a required here. Now, when you have required, then you basically cannot put like a default value, right? But if you do not have a required, you could say like, this is my default last name. But if you try to do this in a required, then you get an error because you cannot put that in, right? So maybe we write it down to the README, kind of like as an overlay overview. So the idea would be to have an overview of the API. Maybe I will then also do a blog post about this. But that's usually how I go about blog posts. I kind of try to explore it and write a layout, and then later write the content around it, and yeah, then polish it in the end and do all the marketing stuff and all this kind of stuff that is actually not so fun. But so we have either a optional, and basically here can have a default value or can be undefined. Then we have a required, and in the required scenario, no default value is allowed. Right? And what else? Like basically must be provided by the parent component, otherwise it doesn't compile. So then what do we have here? As we have options that we can pass. So there we can see we have the initial value, but we also have options. So let's navigate here to the input, and let's see what the input, they even distinguish between with transform options and without transform options. I don't know why they distinguish. I thought that the options are just like The transform is just an option, right? So what you can do is you can have a transform function. So let's say we would have like an input show names. So that could be an input, which is a Boolean false, right? And inside here, we would do like this. First name, first name, and we would say with the new cool syntax, if show names, and show names has to be called since that is a signal. The typing is annoying. What am I missing here? So we have to call show names, and now this is an input which is by default true. And what I wanted to show is how we can use the transform function. So basically, currently, or let's even say we do it false. So if you would render that, then yeah, we get an error because first name is required. So inside our app component, we have to say first name, and we call this first name. Oh, I don't know, German name. No. So yeah, nothing gets shown because we have set show names to false. But what I want to show you is that actually what we could do is we could say show names equals true, right? And then we get that. Maybe I use a different name, like currently. Now I don't have a good name. So what is cool if you use transform is that you can just leave that away. So you could say like show names like this, it doesn't work, right? Because it's get interpreted as a string. But if you would say here that we have a transform function, so we would pass in like this as an object, then we say transform, and inside this transform, we would use the Boolean attribute. And then basically, this should actually work. Yes, and it does. It does work, right? Yeah. Type of Boolean is not assignable. Is this really like broken or not? Because this should work. Guys, what do you think about NGRX signal state? Seems like it should be the default way to manage state in Angular application. Been trying it and loved it simply. Yeah. I also liked it. I think we even tried it once on stream. There were a couple of things that I didn't like so much, which is basically I had some trouble, like, because you have that state file, right? Or that store file. And I had trouble taking it apart, so taking out effects and stuff into other files. So I kind of liked with the old approach that things are in other files. Then also it only works if, what was the other issue? Yeah, in bigger applications, I think you can have scenarios where you will have some shared actions that trigger some stuff, and that will probably be very, very hard to do with the current approach. It's cool as long as you have like your feature and the state is inside that feature, but if you want to trigger like the global stuff or some stuff that is basically outside of that folder, then I think it can be hard. I haven't tried it yet, but I think that's one of the downsides. But for small things I like it, but for bigger things there is some part that I could see how you could run into trouble. So the typing here basically fails. And there was something, I remember somebody, I think Ilir told me that if you use the new input with transform, you have to use it differently. Because I know that with add input this works. Like, if we would basically say that this is not a input like this, I would say that show names, so basically add input, how would that be written? Show names equals false. So that would for sure work. Right now we are running, so that is working. But there was something with the types which I do not remember. Because this is now yeah, that's all still the old syntax. Ooh, let's go through that blog post. At the second type param. Yeah. You see, I remembered that you told me that already once, and now it should work, right? Cool. So I guess now it compiles. Type string is not assignable to type. Is this really true? Because this should now be interpreted as a Boolean attribute. What? Why is he complaining about that? Initial value false, we say we transform to Boolean attribute. I mean that the ID doesn't get that can be, but this should actually work. And now you see, like, once you give it the second type, as Ilya mentioned, you basically get like input signal with transform as the type here. But so I thought that we could now basically do this. Show names, even this should work. Like if I do it could be that the order of type params, but then the first one would be what, any. Or is the first one the Boolean? Because theoretically you could also pass in a Boolean, right? This doesn't have to be a string. Yeah, like this it works. Okay, but then basically everything will be interpreted as a string. So also if I do this, how about, will it complain about this? Because this should then still work, right? So maybe I have to extend the types even further. Do you have to write it like this? Probably. So what I want to support is basically, I want to support this case. I want to support this case. And I also want to support the case where you have this basically. And that should all be supported now. Yeah. So we should, yeah, cool. I don't like that name, but so let's take like Rafi and let's go with one piece or something. Right. So that's better. Cool. So seems like T input, T output. Yes, exactly. And that's actually a good point to mention here, that basically transform type both types, and that would be like T input, T output, right? Exactly as you mentioned it. No, the other way around. The first one is the output. So it would be like this. Output and so basically that. Then what you also can do is you can alias stuff. So you can say show names or show, just show. And then of course inside our app component we would do like this, show, and that should then all work. And I think that's kind of it for the API. I hope that I'm not missing something, because we have omit, input options, transform. Input option is alias and transform. So those are the two options that you get there. Cool. Cool. So that's basically everything that is there. Then there is another way of actually inputs, which is basically model. Did we also mention that on the list? I think we did. Yeah, we did. So let's say we have a file model so, and then so that I don't have to type everything, you can either use schematics, you can type everything, or you can use the good old copy paste. Model, exactly. Now the model could be something that is a good example. A good example for the model is actually some checkbox or something. So, I mean, we will go with a simple one. We will go with a div, and inside here we will have a model. So we call that checked, which is a model. And here again, you can use required and all this kind of stuff. So you should have probably the initial value of the model, right? And also the model options. Model options is basically alias. You cannot transform that, but basically you have to add the alias. So that will be inside our README model inputs, and model inputs has like alias and initial value, so something like that. And what you can do is you can say here, if it's checked, then we want to show just checked. So imagine this could be easily like a checkbox where you then display like a different icon or something. So that could be very well done, right? And now what you want to do is here you want to say handle click. And in this handle click, you want to basically do this, but AI doesn't yet know the new signal API. Something like that. And then here we put a click handler and we say handle click. We optimize the imports and then we go to our app component. Also, let me get rid of the app component HTML so that we can use an inline approach, which makes it a bit easier to work right now because I don't have to switch so many files. And inside here we would say, app model with self-closing tag, right? Model component. Didn't I call it model component? Probably. I forgot to rename this. Right. So now we have our app model. We used it here, so that should compile. But so sometimes that's what I don't like so much about ES build. Like you get to see like the old thing, but not the current updated thing. And of course, we should not use template URL here because we just use an inline template. So it's not template URL, but it is template. So cool. App model not checked, right? And if you click, you can see how it already toggles between checked and not checked. Maybe I will bump it a bit. So here, not checked, right? Cool. And the interesting thing now is whenever you use that, you're basically kind of signing a contract. So if you are a parent component and you have a checked, which is a signal that is true, what you're saying here when you use the model API, you're basically making a contract that you're giving away your signal down to the parent, to the child component, and you're saying this child component, well, you can alter my checked value. So checked would be equal to checked, and then whenever, I don't think we have to call it. So if this would be a normal input, that's also something to notice here. If it would be a normal input, you would have to call it. So you use the brackets, but since it's a model input, you do not have to call it here. So we would do checked, and then we would also want to display like basically some h1. This is parent signal, and this parent signal is displaying the value of the checked attribute. And here we have to call it because we are taking it out. And now this should actually alter this one. How did we call it in the model? Because this is a model. Or do we also have, I don't think we have to call it, because this should reflect back up. This is the parent signal checked. Property, yeah, but that's just the ID that is saying checked is not provided here. I mean, this shouldn't make a difference, but let's see if we get an error. Nope. And I think this is probably, because here you can also put required, right? And if we would not put that, that would fail. Cool. that makes sense. So inside the readme to the API, we will also add dot required. Now you can see how the initial projection works, but it doesn't get reflected back up. Hi Trang Kang, how is it going? So let me quickly Google Angular model. Output. Yeah. I think we need banana in the box syntax. I think it's like this. So you can give it in, but now, yeah. So the syntax was yes. Exactly. Thank you, Amir Hossein. Thanks. So basically, once you use that banana in the box syntax, you are basically saying the contract is that the child can alter your signal, which I think is pretty cool. But as we've seen, you can also pass it one way in. And probably you could also, can you also just take it out like one way? Could you also say like checked equal handle it, and then inside handle it you probably, because this one previously the model syntax was kinda a shortcut for writing like a input. So let's say you would have an input value, and then the model syntax was basically doing like value change and handling that value change event from your child component. So I'm wondering if this is still the case or if it's just only the name of the signal. Signal has been updated. I like the previous one better. Signal has been updated. So even if I do not pass in a checked, so let's say I do not pass in one, that means I have to go to the model component and say, well, it's not required actually. And now, did it reload? So this didn't change. Is there a yes, so that's the same concept as we have currently. Yes, exactly. Thank you, Tran. Yeah, it's exactly the same concept as with the ng model. So that's pretty cool. So that's fun, that's fine, cool. So I guess that's everything that there is to know about the model. Now let's go and do new directory outputs, and let's probably take the content of this one again. New file, outputs, or output. Paste that in. App output. Let's call this the output component. App component. So we go here, we go to imports. We hand in that output component, and now we basically do app output, right? So cool. So we have that. Now what we are going to say is output. Basically here just we can have a button, and that button says click me, and on click we want to emit a new output. Emit output. And this method, oh my god, sorry for the typing, I'm keyboard. So what you can do here is there are a bunch of options with output. So you can say this is an output of type string or whatever. And then what you can do is output and dot, and then you call dot emit. So you say like basically event from the child. Subject is basically also easily say, well, this is next, right? So you could also have a next call, and that was the argument. And the more important reason is that they decouple it from the behavior subject behind the scenes, which allows them in the future to move away from RxJS, or to not to move away, but to make RxJS optional in the framework. And I think that's a cool thing. Making RxJS optional in the framework still is something that is on the roadmap, but I still see this as a big task, especially also like many questions that arise. How do you do then certain stuff? I mean, you can still do it, but I think especially error handling asynchronous stuff, handling like stuff like switch map. I mean, you can still do it, but that's actually a good question. How do other frameworks do this? Like if you use React and you do not have any kind of streaming library like RxJS, how do you do, for example, a type ahead or something where you fire out multiple HTTP requests and you need to cancel ongoing requests and stuff? Do you just do that yourself? Or there I would be really curious if, in case there is somebody that is working with React or other frameworks, I would be really curious if how you do. Or many people maybe just don't handle that case. That's another option. Cool. But that's basically the output. I don't think required would make sense here, so you do not have that. You have like any kind of options. You have output options, probably aliasing, yes. So in output, we have output, and then we have alias, but we have two more things. I think it's called output from observable and output to observable. Output from observable, which basically takes an observable and converts it into an output. So that would be output from observable and output to observable. And I know I have been, like, even on Twitter, I've been asking for use cases for this to observable, and I know that Ilir has sent me some cool link, but I didn't checked it out yet. So let's take a look right now. Wait, I will quickly bring that over. So meet Angular's new output API, which sounds good, yeah. Now in developer preview, exactly, simpler and safer API, consistent API. So this consistency I like. Maybe I'll bump it a bit so that you can see it better. Right, consistency is one of the things that is important here. Like important, it's just nicer. It's just nicer. More correct types. Really, the existing output API with event does not guarantee proper type safety and good. There I would be really curious to see an example of that, because I've used it quite often and I never run into any kind of issue with the typing. Yeah, there I don't see why. I'm not sure if I agree with that argument. Or at least I would be curious to see a case of that. The new API. Yeah, output declares an output. You can emit exactly output from observable. So that I see, if you have an observable and you want to convert it to an output, Because basically what you could do today, you could directly provide an observable, right, with the next function, because a behavior subject kind of extends that. So you could do that. Hi, Quentin. How are you? It's important to note that this new API is not a signal. Yes, so that's what I mentioned previously. The output function. So I am still curious where they use, I think that's still coming, where they use output to observable. Because I was questioning like, okay, we have an output to observable. Why don't we have, so can be a valid case. I cannot see one off the top of my head, but I believe there are valid cases. But then my question is, why don't we have a output to signal? Like, that's, go to the end of the article, okay. Output to observable function, exactly. That integrates Rx values from Rx streams, yeah. But that's still, okay, output from observable. Yeah, I want listening to outputs. Today in Angular, yeah. So basically today you get, should you really do that? Yeah, so you can subscribe, okay. This allows developers to continue listening to outputs consistently. Yeah, okay. But still, I'm also, why would you want to? So what you're doing here is basically you get a hold of a component via viewchild or something, you get a hold to the reference, and then you listen to the output ref, you subscribe there. In what scenario do you want that? Only in the highly dynamic scenarios where you do not have access to the component template. So I guess if you have like a component, you have some ng content, you project something down, you do not know that it's there, like you access it with content children. Okay, maybe in those cases, yeah. Okay, but then still, I mean, it's nice that we have, I do not want to, like, this is cool that we have it. I think they should provide whatever kind of interop functionalities that we have, like with the new API and observable. I think we should all have that. I'm just wondering why, and it makes sense that they do not have a signal one, actually, now that I think about it. For output from observable, do you think handling input or form value changes would be good? Yeah, maybe, yeah. That could be something. That could be something, because the form value changes. I mean, form and signal still need some rework, but I think that could be something, yeah. So the reason why actually it makes sense that they have an observable and not a signal one is actually, that was recently also mentioned in a GD call. I don't know who was it, but I think Pavel said something very, very cool. And I think that's an important thing to keep in mind is signals, especially also if you now think about making RxJS optional, signals are super cool, or signals and RxJS do not serve the same purpose. So RxJS is for event-based stuff and signals is not for event-based stuff. So that means here an output is actually, or how we called in the past, an event emitter. So it's about events, right? And therefore signals do not make any kind of sense here. So the best thing to think about is when to use RxJS or when to think of an observable and signals. Yeah, I think Alex mentioned it from the Angular team. A cool thing to think about is a signal. With a signal makes sense in the cases where you can ask the question, what is the current value? for forms, for example. So forms is a very good case where you can say, what is the current value of my form, right? Their signals make sense. But for all the event stuff like HTTP requests and all that kind of stuff, signals do not make sense. And the Angular team already mentioned that if they make RxJS optional, they will not replace, they need some other solution for HTTP, right? Because the current HTTP client is observable based. It's an observable based API. And if they want to make basically RxJS optional, they need to come up with a different kind of API. I guess it will be promise based, but for sure it will not be signal based. And yeah, that now makes perfect sense to me. So by reading this again, so thanks Ilir for sharing. That was helpful. Cool. So emit output, and now inside our app component, of course, we could go and we could say like, how did we call it? Output, very cool name. Handle click, inside this handle click. So now when we click, we can see in the console down here how we get the click handle. So that's a cool thing here. And I think that's everything that is there. Output to observable. Maybe here as a small side note for me, signals do not make sense here. Cool. Good. We had inputs, outputs, model inputs. View children is basically something that we can cover. So there's quite some new stuff, right? It's actually, I wouldn't go with view children. It's more like, how did they call it? I think they called it query APIs or something. I think there was, I'm just checking, there was a good name somewhere. Yeah, I think I would call it query APIs. I don't know why, but new file viewchild.component or viewchild query, but let's just call it view queries. Right. Queries. And also here we call it view queries component. View queries, app view queries, cool. So now the view queries basically allows you to query stuff that you were previously doing with view children. So we can have different kind of view queries. Like we could have a native element, a component, or whatever. Like, so we could have like here a div, I don't know, that would be my element. We could have even a ng template. Yeah, that here doesn't make sense, but no, it's good. No, it makes sense. And then the app output, for example, we could also have that. So now the way to query this is basically, you can say that we have our div. It's not an input, but it's a view child. And what is the problem here? View child expects one argument, and that argument is probably the locator. They call it locator, but basically the reference to the template, right? For the HTTP request, is it possible to handle it by async away combined with signal? Because signal marks the view dirty under the hood. Yeah, so basically, I imagine, I don't know how the final API will look like, but as you say, so I see signals as something that you always need as, I mean, it can also be for state and stuff, but in this case, it's the last instant where you convert something before you go into a view. So I would say, I could imagine that a new, let's do like a scratch file. Angular, whatever. So I could see that we have a component, right? Should we go like proper like component? So for the near future, I could see something like this. Export class my futuristic. I mean, we could even talk about different authoring format, right? But that's then another case, like what Brandon was proposing there with analog. I don't think he was proposing, but he was doing some cool stuff there. So shout out to Brandon Roberts for all the stuff that he does, right? So I could see something like this, that you have a component. First of all, what I would see in the near future is this, that you have here an additional flag. Like this is the standalone flag that we have. Oh my god, the formatting is completely broken because I'm in some scratch file, but whatever, you get the point, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. And then I can see this signal true. And once you do signal true means if you would have like a flag or whatever, so if you would have my flag equals true, or even my title, and you would do something like this, keyboard. So I imagine that if you have this flag signal true, that this would not work, right? Because this would not get change detection. So you would need a signal, otherwise there is no change detection. And the value didn't change, but for the initial run, it's still change detection, right? And I could see that basically now, if you would get something from an HTTP request, I could imagine that you do something like this. So you would have like still an on-init. I will not type everything out, but still you would have like an on-init lifecycle hook, right? And there you will call your service, or even, let's say you would do it directly here, which you shouldn't. If you follow the proper pattern, you should do it in the service, but let's say you would do inject Angular's new promise-based HTTP client, right? And then you do like your get, whatever, and then inside here you do the set. And probably, I guess you could also just go like async and then await, right? Await here. You get the idea. I could see that very well, like that we write something like this. Especially also the async await. I mean, currently you can use it and it gets change detected, but it only gets change detected because you transpile it down to promises. Because otherwise the native async await does work in the browsers, but it's not patched by zone. So if it's not patched by zone, it doesn't get change detected, right? I mean, you can still use it to code, but maybe they could then even use the native one if they are zoneless then. So yeah, you can do div element to get a hold of that. You can even get a hold of template references. So when you get a template reference, you probably want to, I mean, unless you pass that template around, there is not much to do with that. So what you could do is like, you could say still as an option, read view container ref, I think it was called, or something like that. right? Those are the options that you can use on ViewChild. But let's quickly go through the options that are there. I think you can also, you can even do a required now. So what does that mean? Like with that, you'd probably say that this element here is there, right? And if I would do like add if render it, and I would wait for like 2 seconds until I resolve that. So I would say render it is equal to a new signal, which is false. And I would then go like constructor and set timeout, and I go like this. And I say, I mean, it's not enough. I want to use the proper functions here. I guess that this probably fails. What am I rendering inside app component? App view queries. So let's see. 1, 2. Still works. What if I remove it? It seems like that required doesn't have any effect here. Maybe I also do like console log. So I get the element, which is a signal, right? So I would need to call this. Yeah, child query result is query, but no value is available. What if I do this inside another set timeout? Because probably this is also not change detected, right? So if after 3 seconds, probably, let's see. So we render it after 2, and then we get it, right? So it's some timing issue, but I don't see how. Yes, exactly. Async await is transpiled into promise base, therefore you can use it. But if you change the compile target so that it's transpiled to native async await, it would not work. But that's because of zone chairs, right? The browser itself can understand it. So I don't really get that required, because what is the difference now? Like, of course it fails, but and what if I remove the required? I mean, it doesn't. It just changes the type. Here you say like it's signal or undefined, right? And there you basically say it is there, I'm guaranteed, but it doesn't really like check. So it's just you just get like different typing. So that would be on you children, or it would be like you child, but I guess the API is both for same, like required. That changes the type. All right. So then you have the options where you can read like, I mean, here you can say required. You have the options where you can say you have read, and I think that's kind of it. Yeah, I think that's it. Like opts provide a token read, yes. And then what I especially like, but don't we have the static mean, locator and then options, it's just read. So we no longer have static or I don't think that any longer exists with signals. Yes, but then when is it available? So if I say ng if render it, and here I go with a normal flag where I say it is true, right? And now I'm curious because this in the past with static false was only available inside of the view init, right? But inside the engine init, it is not available. And I guess you probably have to use it now different because it's a signal. No. I want to do this. But I'm still curious now if I come here and say console log this dot render it. Not this dot render it, but this dot devel. Do I get something? No value is available, right? So it's not here. Default is the same, but I cannot really make it. Yeah, I get it there. So I cannot really make it static true. Is that kind of gone? Angular view child static true. Angular signal queries, view queries, view child. Is there something written about static? Nope. If a child query does not find the result, its value is undefined. This may occur if the target element is hidden by a control flow statement like if or for. That's exactly what we are doing. Because of this, the child queries return a signal. Yes, yes. One matching. But you can basically say required, and you can mark child queries as required to enforce. But then you probably have to understand, yeah, it would throw an error, right? From the result type, if a required query does not find any results, Angular throws an error. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. So here basically we say view child, changes the type, and throws error if undefined. So that's basically the replacement for the static. Cool. Then of course one thing that is super cool is, like, let's say we would have two paragraphs here. First paragraph, second paragraph, right? So you have these two paragraphs. And then what you could say is paragraphs are view children, and you go for the P, go for the P, go for the P. And then even here we could say, so I would now go basically, this is kind of required. Here, that's also interesting. On view children, you cannot go required. So that's then view children. There is no required, right? Cool. So, but what you would have here is console log, and I am a really big fan of this, because this is now just an array. It's not like some custom construct with query list and stuff. It is just an array, right? and I find that super cool. So here it's an empty array. Why can't I use the locator just a normal HTML tag? I mean, let's see what if I try with the element like this, and I go take that outside. Yeah, I would get it. So you cannot query with this. So probably I would need to go and give it like, what can I query actually? It's also a good question, like locator, abstract type. So the locator can either be, of course, a directive, a template ref, but can it also be something else? I don't think so. So I would need to go like, if I have two paragraphs, I will get both of them. And this is now a normal array with the element refs in it. So I think that's very, very cool. Yeah, a directive could also be possible, yes. Directive or this, but I don't get that the class would probably not work, no. Good, so that's query APIs for view queries. Now let's do like content child, content queries. So for me, the new thing here was the required, because I was not aware of this. And that's kind of cool. So app view queries, app content queries. So now the interesting thing is here. And in that case, we can also directly look at the default content. So ng content now has this new feature where you can just say like, well, I have an ng content, everything that gets projected inside here. But you can also specify a default content, which is pretty cool. So view queries component, that would be content queries component, and we add that here, right? Did we change the selector? Yes. So if I now start this, what we should see is default content or an error. Yeah. What is the problem here? NJ content element. Wasn't this merged? In which version was this merged? Angular. Maybe I'm not on the latest. NG content. Yeah, it will be. I saw that it's merged somewhere. But maybe it's only in the release candidate, but this will be the idea, right? Content projection. Let's go to, I still find that name funny, Angular. But yeah. Releases. Next to, I saw capture all control, capture switch blocks, add support for fallback content in ng content here. That's actually the commit. It will be in 18 next to. So yes. Yeah, you are absolutely right, Ilya. But yeah, so you get the idea. If you do not provide something, you would get that. So now let's say I basically do like a content child. So I would say like, I want to query all the buttons that come through. That's equal to a content child, HTML button. And the same, I guess here, you can also again do the required. So it will change the types, it will throw an error if it's not there. Buttons will be the same, but we say content children. And then inside the content children, you get a list of HTML buttons, right? And now let's use that app component and let's pass down like some stuff. So no self-closing tag, because this uses content projection. And we are saying here button 2. And now we go, this should be available. I don't think this is available. This should also be available inside the ng after viewing it. But let's just make it like sure. Implemented interface. So, and here we say console log this dot button, and then we also we log the buttons. So I would say my expectation is that the first one fails and then the second one is an empty array. So here it already fails, so we don't even get to the second one. But if we would put that into the after render, right? Then we will get the buttons. Or after render can only be used within an injection context, such as a constructor. Yes, because this is an engine in it and not a constructor, so that makes sense. Cool. Child query result is queried, but no value is available. Because here maybe here I also have to use a directive or something. Because if I say here add directive probably go with this my button, right? Standalone button directive, and then I put on here like my button, I go down here inside. I'll do like this. Can this be the locator? It's just but I thought that the basic stuff works like content child locator. Yeah. Because this content child directive, right? So that's basically what we are trying to do. But then in the new way, content child required mean, it's not assignable to this, and that's the issue. I mean, all good. Now we get our buttons, right? So that's the content child, content children API, which makes sense. Basically, in terms of API perspective, it's kind of like content. I'll call this content queries, right? Content child also can be required, and probably, are there any other options? I don't think so. Content child function has also a descendants and a read, right? Makes sense. Descendants is basically used when you want to query also like nested elements. Read and descendants, and then the content children has the same, has also read. But here we also have the required option, right? Cool. So this is in Angular V18. Now the new lifecycle hooks, which are after render and after next render. And for me, it's always like, what is the difference between them? So we will go like here, app, new directory, lifecycle hooks, and new file lifecycle hooks.component.ts. Add component. App lifecycle hooks. Template. So now that I write this, I am thinking like, one thing that we should also test, where I'm curious, but I guess it's no, it's good. We don't have to test that. So app lifecycle hooks. Cool. So those are the content queries, right? App lifecycle hooks. So now check after view check after view init. Is there something that I'm missing? 5. I think those are the 5. And we will have 2 new ones in the future. So let's say we would have here the button and whatever, you do something on click. And inside the constructor, so the new ones are used inside the constructor. So what you would do is after render, and you would also have another one, what do I have? Caps lock, which is called after next render, right? And now what is the difference between those, like after next render? I was always confused by this name, like what does it mean? So basically the thing is, here you should do like this one-time setups, like for example resize observer, for example, or third-party libs. And here it's more like sync with view, so stuff that you want to sync with you. And the difference is that this runs multiple times So basically kind of like runs after each change detection cycle, and this kind of is runs once. If I can say it like this. The naming is confusing. The naming is so confusing. I agree. Like after next render, and not just the naming, because for me it's also if you check the explanation like that they have after render, and no, this one is kind of okay, but after next render. So to me that's just confusing, because here register a callback to be invoked the next time the application finishes rendering. So like, yeah, exactly, after next render of what. And so the best way I could come up for me, the explanation, that's also why I want to show this, is like you have this, and initially you can see after render we run like 2 times, that's 2 times per change detection, but after next render runs once. And now if we click and we would do something here on the button, so let's say we would have like a counter which is a signal, and we start with 0, right? And we have like click, handle, click, and let's add a click handler, right? So we update that, and we have to display it inside the template. So let's just do it like this, counter, good. So we could see that, we could see that after next render kind of gets initially once, and then after render gets called whenever the change detection runs for that component. So yes, not tied to components exactly, but this name to me is just confusing. Then there is another cool thing that I want to show you, but probably we have to quickly generate a new project. Let's see, because I first want to git remote origin. I mean, do we already have? Didn't we add a git remote? No, we didn't add a repo. So let's do that. New. By the way, Ilir, have you also seen my brand new poster of big bands right here against Chelsea? So let's... Oh, we should commit it first. So let's push that. Okay, what I wanted to show you is something like this. npx new lifecycle demo. And the reason why we do that is because what I want to show, do you want to enable server-side rendering? For the first time in the stream, we go server-side. Woo! So, documents, code, private. Lifecycle demo, trust project, new window. Good, good, good. Cool. So we have the lifecycle demo. Still installing the packages. npm install. By the way, is out there somebody really using Bun, or did somebody try Bun, like not for small project, but for real, like for a real mid-size to bigger project? So let's start that. So we serve, no, cool, we are building. And now you can also see the server bundles and so on. So now, what we want to see is inside app component, if I put on init after view init, right? I put those two life cycles here. Template just empty. Whatever. Console log. And after viewing it. And John in it. Right, and then somehow this just doesn't work for me. It has to be the proper order. I mean, it doesn't make a difference, but it has to be. So now if we watch our logs, how do I get here? I would be curious, how can I'm not so into the whole SSR story, but how can I get like the server logs? I mean, if I do here like console log, do I get something like that? Yeah, okay, good. So it was just not there. Your thought about material free. I haven't checked material free yet. Like I saw that they once did like this refactoring, but like, what is material free? Material free is the latest integration. I mean, I heard that they are doing something, but I actually don't use Angular material, so I'm not really up to date with that, but material free is the latest iteration. Okay. So I would be curious, what is like the difference? No, really. It would be cool to see like a difference from 2 to 3. So yeah, so what I wanted to show you here, and that's the interesting thing, that those lifecycle hooks obviously run on the server, right? And the cool thing about the new ones, which is important, is they should only run on the client side. So you can now go inside the constructor and do a after render callback, where you do like after render, and then after next render, our favorite callback, after next render. And now let's refresh. We can see server, engine in it, and after view in it. But now on the client, we can see how after render and after next render runs. It is expected the design token will be introduced, okay? And the design token, what is the design token doing? The CSS custom properties emitted by the theme mixins are derived from design token. The same tokens are used in design tools and code. Yeah, okay, cool. So probably those are CSS variables, I guess. Tokens ensure the same style values are. Yeah, so I'm actually working on something similar to material. That's actually what we are also striving for. But then it's kind of hard to keep stuff in sync with Figma and the designs, right? The designs in the code. But yeah, that would be the idea actually, design system. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm also kind of striving for in my current project. Cool, but yeah, so the lifecycle hooks only run client side. Yeah, you wrote an article years ago, probably. Can be, I mean, I wrote around 50 or 55 articles. I don't remember really teaching how to. Okay. Okay, that could be. Cannot really remember what it was about. Like, or what is the, I mean, I know that I wrote something about ng template stuff. I even had like a call with Minko about this topic. And I don't really remember the details. I was once deep into this ng deep stuff. So yes, so I guess that's kind of like what I wanted to achieve here. So I'm still thinking if there could be a cool example, because I will basically talk about this and I will for sure will dive into the API, but I'm thinking if there's a cool example to just show some of the things together in like one demo component. So if I would do like a directory demo, and inside here I do a new file, demo component. Maybe I don't call this demo. Depends on what it is. What's a good case for something that uses inputs, outputs, and all that kind of stuff. Reset. So I could imagine something like this, like a cart where you have like some content, maybe like an image or whatever. You could have a like button, and you can have a title, for example, which is required. So that would be like title, content, and here like a like. And what we could say is basically, if I take a text in a different color, maybe in blue, so this could be like, whoa, input, new input API. Here this could be basically the model. Here we could kind of use output. So if you click on the image, one thing that we should consider about new lifecycle is related to face option. What do you mean by the face option? And so we would have those APIs, inputs, outputs, model inputs, and then what I basically would need is maybe I do like a focus behavior or something, like focus image or something. Yeah, it would be cool to have like one view child, to have like maybe a focus on the whole thing, and then I kind of go from there. So my idea is then you can basically explain first like, well, we have a component, let's write these small behaviors with the new API, and then you dive a bit deeper into some of the APIs. Like, so let's develop that likable card. or my card. Actually, it's refactor, rename. Let's call this photo card component. Let's go with that. Selector, photo card, and let's use a inline. Somehow for these small components I'm becoming a big fan of inline templates for whatever reason. It's like less navigations between files, which I really like. So photo card component, cool. Now this photo card component is basically a simple card. So there I'm just too lazy. That's how I use AI for this basic stuff. Generate me some cool styles in CSS for a card that displays a title, has an image as the main content, and has an image as the main content. Generate me some cool styles and has a like button, right? Because I find it a bit cooler if you come to some talk and like you first present something quickly live and then you dive into the details without, because just it's like a slide demo that's maybe not so interesting. Like, so let's copy that. Okay, so we have a card, cool. We have some image. The image could either be like an ng content, or we just accept it as an input. I'm not I mean, let's do let's maybe do ng content would be more flexible, but let's go simple. Let's just say like, okay, we have a source, which is a image URL, right? And since it's a signal, we have to call that. Input.required. So we require that. And then let's also add another one, which is a title. But that title is not required. It's just a title. Probably we don't need this if we provide a default. So if we say like my cool photo, whatever, image URL, then we have a image click. Whoa, go down, which, oh, this keyboard, which is an output. So I still do not want to use this keyboard always. It's just like I didn't have another one besides my besides the Moonlander. Sorry. So on click we would do image click dot emit, right? That would be the output. Cool. And then we want to have a public focus method, which we'll do in a bit, but let's first grab the CSS styles, copy code. So there, to not over pollute the thing, I want to do like a dedicated CSS file. So I will go photo card. Somehow component with CSS. It's a bit weird that I do like the HTML inline and the CSS not. But somehow this the inline kind of corresponds to the TypeScript, right? But the CSS is kind of like a different thing on the side. They usually, it's not so important for me here. So yeah, I don't know. Web component. Photo card component, cool. So are we still running that? We are not. Photo card required, yes. Image URL. Now we need a cool image. So let's take some, I don't know. What's a cool place? Let's take an image from Switzerland. That's actually where I sit right now. Here, right? No. No, or let's take a beach, whatever. No. Let's keep Switzerland. It's good. It's good. So, did I do copy image URL? I could take this place. There's a very nice hike here in Switzerland, which is called Swiss tourism should pay me for making like advertisement here. But this is like a hike I did last year. That's amazing because you have on the one side, you have all the mountains and here you have the lakes on the other side and you walk down here. That's such an amazing hike that if you're once in Switzerland, I would recommend this. Copy link address, so cool. Did we call it image URL? Yes, we called it image URL. So how will that look like? Maybe go to 100%. And we say image URL is source. This should actually work. Inspect. Yeah. Is this the correct URL? Image address, probably. Yeah. So you have that, and you have a like button. I mean, it's nothing fancy, but it does what it should do. Maybe we go to styles, and we still add like body margin of 20 pixels or something. Yeah, cool. So you have that, and now you have that nice card. Maybe we'll show it then like this, like developed on the side. So probably we do also a display flex here and a justify content center. That sounds about right. So that we have the card in the middle, and then basically the idea would be to do something like this. So you take that over right here. Yes, something like that. And then, because then you can kind of show browser and dev tools, and I think that's a very nice setup. So yeah, what we want to do, like the inputs, so we would have the outputs. The last thing that is missing inside the photo card is the focus. So what we would do is we would get here, inject always first, equal to inject, let's call it element, inject element ref, right? So we probably need some focusable styles for our card so that it can be focused. It probably has to be tab index 0. That's just like the focus with the tab, and you already get the focus style. But the idea would be that you can also then basically programmatically focus that from the app component. So you could say inside the app component, you would have a view child, photo card equals to view child. That is wrong. So that shouldn't be necessary. I mean, it is required. Then we would do a constructor, then after next render, not even, would be after render, inside here what you would do is this dot photo card dot focus, right? And now probably we should get like read, how is it, photo card component, I think it's like this. I mean, we could not do this in after next render. We could. I mean, we can. Ah, this is signal, of course. Probably don't even need that read. I think that's the default. So yeah, you started. It's not focused. Do we need a set timeout here? So we should come here. Yeah, we get there. Probably we just do it on top, like on click. Does this change something? Nope. But is there even a focus state like on our card? There is no focus state, so probably that was the issue. So cool. Let's still go with that. I want to have an initial focus. I don't say that this is like a cool feature. I'm just thinking of something where I can show some use case. Card, so, and focus, outline, 1 pixel, solid blue. Let's go. Really? We because this should be the thing that is happening. Photo card focus. This dot element dot native element focus. Does this have to be inside the set timeout again? Because I'm not sure if probably here there is no change detection running, right? Because there is no click happening, nothing is happening. So it's probably a change detection issue. So what I would need to do is, instead of doing this, I probably need to go CDR to get a hold of the change detector ref, like this, and then say this.cdr.mark for check. Now mark for check is enough, because it marks it up, it's probably not enough, so I guess a detect changes should do it. Well, it doesn't. Why? I mean, if I do here, like this like button, let's say I would do like a click and I say focus. It doesn't really do it. Huh? Yeah, but that's basically... Wait, why is this not happening? Is it focusable element? It should be with the tab index, or? Maybe it's not even possible. Yes, it is possible. You need to assign a tab index, yes. But is it programmatically then also possible? Because I know that if we come here, right, then it does it. Ah, because we are not doing it. You know, we are trying to focus like... Basically, that's a cool thing. So we are not focusing the element here, we are focusing the host. And even if we do the host, so that's basically for nothing. And if we do it on the host, those styles have to be different. They have to be double point host, right? And now, are we still doing the focus? Like button. Not. Photo card. Okay. Maybe we need... tab index 0, which should make it focusable. Why? Yeah, if you tap it will focus the... I mean, we can also try it with this. But why? I thought there is this double point host and focus. Okay. I mean, we can do it like this. So again, on div, we do a tab index of 0. let's go like this, focus, and then we say this is basically the cart. So we put hashtag cart, then we come down here and we say cart is view child, where we get a hold of our cart, and then we say this dot cart, probably have to call it. Now it says it's undefined, so we put a required on it. And that's also wrong, it's an element ref like this. And we focus it, right? So that's good. So that works if we click here, but probably and it works. Cool. It's just that if you click away, but then I will probably go here like a button, also that we style that button a bit. Generate me some CSS for a button. Let's go. BL set. What does that stand for? Like, bunk lights up, or some, I don't know, maybe I'm too old for that. So okay, cool. So we have a button there inside our app component, and it'll be like focus cart, whatever, and if you click you would do focus. Cool. And here we have a focus method which does what I was saying. Cool, nice. And what is the query selector dot button? And here probably inside my app component I also want this button to have some margin top of 20 pixels, right? Cool. I mean it's way too big compared to this, but here what we could do now is like something like this. Liked. Liked, right? And then we do it like that. And this would be a span. Also, I think it would be cool if that button is more like this one inside, so we should actually use the same one, like button, so that should just be whatever. So let's just take this. Let's just put all the buttons here on this page like this. Button hover. And then we do not need inside the styles, we don't need that stuff. Yeah, and then the like does not exist exactly because that's something that we will then demo. It's like this is signal false. And then what you can say here is like and then inside our photo card we would have, we do not need that, but we would need like, which is a model boolean, right? And on click, do like.update. Also, this is a bit annoying. I don't know. I think it doesn't really compile, so you really you cannot do this inline inside a click handler. So you really have to do handle like. So you really have to do this as a method, where you say handle like, and then you go this dot liked dot update, exactly, something like that. Unsupported expression in a two-way data binding, whatever, liked. It's a model, and yes. And then here, of course, inside this component, have a div. Class container, let's just call this container. Yeah, what a container. No. Justify content actually start. And then flex direction column, flex, I think it's just gap. 15 pixels, that should be good. That's too much. 10 pixels, margin top. I think it's actually not too much, it's just this. Something like that. I mean, it's a cool example, right? Just show like, okay, this like, this true, false. And you can focus the card. Cool. I think that's a cool example. So let's go push that. Feed. Okay, then. Yeah, probably what I want to do is I want to have some API overview for some demo slides. Maybe those can then also be cool Twitter cards actually. So let's see, let's go to the README. So let's see if we can come up with something here. Let me close this one and let me go split view. And we have to write, and here we do, I want to have a scratch. I mean, I can also go here and do like just like a new file. Let's just do a demo component. So I would go like add component, standalone. Actually, I don't care about this at the moment. So my component. So what you could have is like basically you could have a input, so optional input. That would be something like this, right? Then you could have a required input. That could be this. Then you could have a transformed input. No. That would be Boolean attribute. That would be, we set its output would be Boolean and input would be string or Boolean. Then you probably can still have like a default value since it's not required. And then we can have a alias input, and that would be like an input, and we say alias some fancy name, right? Those are kind of the options that we have, and I think that's cool because now this could be a cool tweet. Yeah, I think that's cool. So let's take this, copy that, and we go over to angularexperts.io. And also I quickly have to check something. So let's go to angularexperts.io. And now I have made like, also if you like my coding theme that I use, like the Skull coding theme, feel free to also check out what I'm showing you right now, which is the code tailor. That's a program that I wrote. Like, it's not yet fully thought through, but the idea is kind of like, it's similar to Carbon, but Carbon doesn't allow that you emit custom themes. So basically what we did here is, yeah, we made our own Carbon kinda. So should we do spacings? Maybe that's a bit better to read, because that could be a cool tweet. In fact, let's do like on the Finder, I will do a new folder, API images. And now let's export this to the PNG, which is cool. So now we get access to that. And then we can also tweet about that. But first, I quickly need a coffee. So since I'm doing my coffee, like myself, like proper coffee, not like just a machine, I really use like the normal beans, a grinder and all, and I do the cappuccino, right? So it will take me like 2 minutes or something. So be right back. Okay, sorry for that. Yes, so made like some nice coffee. Also, Jack the, yeah, you cannot really see the latte art. But that's an amazing one. That's a Colombian coffee. So I recently really started to dive into specialty coffee. That's amazing. So yeah, so we had that code Taylor. So let's copy that to that folder that I made on the desktop, API images. So that would be this one. So the idea is, then also let's tweet that. Let's go, let's say like, here's a quick overview on Angular's new input API. Probably we should do hashtag, right? In Angular's new input API. And then probably PS, if somebody still wants to join the stream. So where is the stream? The stream is here, YouTube. So probably just like this, right? So, okay, cool. Good, so the idea is to make now the same for output. So for output, we would have like my event, which is a output. And what you would do is you would give it like, just like void output. Then you would have my event. Right, so we would type it, and then we can have a my event from observe. I mean, I could also, instead of having the comments my void output, my void, maybe that's better. But I don't know, actually, I don't want it to be too long. Maybe it's cooler like this. My Boolean output, and this would be output from observable, my stream. Usually it's this that my stream, right? That would be like this. My output from stream, and then we could still have my stream from output, and that would be output to observable, this dot my output. Something like that, I would say. So now let's again take this, copy that into the code Taylor, and let's go with that. So that would be export to PNG, and that will basically be the output API. something like that. Oh, you could still have, it's written like this. My cool, yeah, we are missing that. So that would be my aliased output. I completely missed that. So let's copy that one into the output. Right, output API. Cool. Then, last but not least, I know we first have to do like models. Model. My model input. So I guess it would be model string, for example. And then, let's still import that. Here we can probably also didn't we even explore the model options? It's just an alias. So that would be my optional, my required, and here we could give like some initial value, and then here we would do an alias, my cool model input, and that would be like my aliased model input. So space here, here, move that. So model. Cool. Then view children. So view children, what we would have, my element is equal to view child dot, that would be required, my required element, and here this would be like element. Usually we go with optional first, so then let's also be consistent here. And here we can say HTML div element or whatever. Probably, usually it's an element ref, I would say. We can type that. So my required element, then what did we see in, we also have a read. My view container ref, so you could say I have a element and I want to read that, but what I want to read is the view container ref. I mean, I can import that, but that's basically it, right? And then for the view children, there is no required, so that would be my elements would be view children element ref, basically this, right? My elements and my view containers, I guess it would be like this. So that would then be an array. And here we still need read view container ref, and then note there is no required version of view children. Since it will return an empty array if no elements are found. Yes. So that's kind of the summary of this. So that would be like, I probably have to improve CodeTailer here a bit, so that it can handle like these cases here, right? It's multi-lines. But yeah, that's basically view children. So we'll go here, we would say like cool view queries. Nice. So then, next thing is content child. And here we go with my directive instead of something else, right? Content child has also the required. It also has a read. So I mean, it also has read whatever. Does this make sense? Like content child, read element ref. Yeah. So I think what you could do, my element ref, then here what you can say is content child my just descendant. Yeah, and then we basically have the same for like content children, and here there's still one thing that I'm missing, which is basically this, right? Content children. My elements, my refs. So what you would get here is yeah, we don't have to type. That's actually wrong in the previous one. Can I go back here? Because here probably for view children, I guess you also just type it like this. So let's see, we have still the view children. Yeah, you type it like this. Right, but let's make sure. Because this is now whatever, that's the string. Yeah, so you type it like this. So that was basically wrong, so we should not have that in here. So let me quickly update the picture. Move to bin. View queries, yeah. So that would be content children, element, my element refs. Descendant. Yeah, something like that. Oh. So also we do not have any required version here of content children, right? So something like that. So we take that, we put that inside here. Maybe we have to take that apart into 2 pics then, because it's kind of a lot. I think I go like this, which makes more sense. Something like this. Content children. Right. Okay. So then the lifecycle hooks. So the cool thing is here, we probably do not have to write everything from scratch, because we already have the lifecycle hooks where we say this. And then what we can do, on init, runs on client only. That's wrong, runs on server. So basically something like that. That's the thing to take away here from the lifecycle hooks, that some of them only run client side, run on client only, one-time setup, third-party libs. It kind of runs once, something like that. I don't know if that's too big of a PNG, but like, how big does this look like? Yeah, that's okay. Or maybe take it apart, like, so you would say kind of those are the new ones. New hooks. and those would be the old hooks. There would be actually more, but I mean basically all the old ones run on server side and client side. So maybe that should be made clear here. Like, I think it would be better to say here runs on server and client, to just be explicit. Like, I think that makes more sense. Old hooks. Cool. Yeah, and that's kind of it. So default content is about to come in Angular 18. Yes, I would say that's it. Also today I released a new version, if somebody's interested in that. Hello future billionaire. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So would be curious how I become a billionaire. So if you have any advice, right, feel free to drop it. Cool. So yeah, today what we also did was on npm we were Inject pilot. We released a new version, which is published now 1.07. So it doesn't have a lot of downloads. It's not such a known project, but I think it's actually pretty cool because if you're migrating away from Angular constructor-based injection, maybe it would be cool to extend this a little bit, to add like a few words, why it's important and so on. Maybe that could be cool. Like, do we have something? Did I write about this? Maybe I could copy that. Angular signal inputs. I thought I did something about Inject. I did a YouTube video about it, probably. So yeah, that could be something where I could extend. Maybe let's do this also, like, because anyway, just in the flow. Open recent projects, Inject pilot. So, okay. So inside the README, we are mainly going to the README. Getting started. Schematics to help migrate constructor-based injection in Angular code bases to Inject. So I think it would be cool to have here like a small paragraph, like, why should I migrate? Yeah, it is a more modern way, but is this really an argument? No, it's not. So basically what I want to say, today's constructor based injections that are not reshakable only work because of a shut up. Because of there's a TypeScript flag, and I don't remember how the TypeScript flag is called, but I think it's in tsconfig. This is not an Angular project, so let's open what we had. Lifecycle. I mean, it doesn't matter, like Signal API is like new window. So it's basically only possible because of a thing inside the TS config. So inside the TS config, we have the Angular compiler options, and I think it's strict injection parameters. Angular compiler options. Strict injection parameters. Here, when true reports an error for a supply parameter whose injection type cannot be determined, when false constructor parameters. I think there is something like Angular why use inject. Let's see, because so from my point of view, there are a couple of reasons why you should do it. Because there is this flag, which I don't know which it is, but I know that there is a flag which makes this possible, and otherwise it would not work. The second point is if you use extend, for example, if you use inheritance in your code base, there's no need for a super call. So you do not call super anywhere. And the third time is if you have an injection token, the type can be properly inferred by using inject. That's not what I want. Yeah, exactly. What is that? I decided. Yeah, for my use case. I mean, I don't know, like in TypeScript and above, default for how constructors are evaluated, changed Angular uses a flag to get the old behavior back. Using check doesn't have this, is my biggest reason. Future proofs, yeah. But which flag is it? That would be cool. Anyway, let's just mention that we need a flag. So today's constructor-based injections only work because of a types. How did he write it? That's perfect. Types because of a flag that enables TypeScript's old how construct of how constructor checks only work because Angular uses a flag that enables TypeScript all behavior of how constructor properties are evaluated. Using inject, like maybe a therefore. Inject makes your code more future proof. Okay. When using constructor-based injections, with injection tokens in combination with injection tokens, you do not get proper type safety. With inject, this is not a problem. This is not a problem. Inject makes it super convenient to inject services in combination with inheritance. No need for super calls, right? Cool. And then I think I have a video on that, but let me see. Where is that video? It's probably this one. Maybe we can link that. Okay, so that's basically, so here we do a link. How is it again in Markdown? Find out more about the advantages of using the inject function, right? So getting started is npm inject pilot. So getting started, actually the easiest is probably because you do not want to install that. So that's just a dev tool that you want to run once and then forget about it. So that's npm inject pilot. So basically like just usage. That's kind of it. Why should I migrate? Yeah, I think that's kind of it. So let's go here and let's say like, okay, clear git inject pilot, git status, push, and then let's npm publish. Cool. Wrong. So that should probably be then 0.1.8, and then we have clear chore bump version. Push and then publish, right? So now 1.0.h should go out of inject pilot. Cool. 1.0.7, 1.0.8. Yeah, cool. Okay, and that's kind of it. So that's it, yeah. So that's it for today. I did basically everything that I wanted to do. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. Thanks for everybody for joining the stream. And then I wish you a great start into the week, because today is like in most places, I think it's still like a public holiday. And then I hope to see you soon. So thanks for joining and have a great evening. Bye-bye.